Joining us now, Dr. Rob Wittman, Congressman, Republican 1st District, just had a big re-election win on Tuesday night. Also, he's a candidate, one of 4 candidates running for governor. And Dr. Wittman, good to have you with us, man.
Don, it's great to be with you this morning. Wow, what a great week! I tell you, phenomenal. I am just excited about where we are and the things that are out there in front. And as you know, you called this thing early on when I was on with you last Friday. I said Trump can win this thing, and boy, I'll tell you, I don't think there were a lot of people that felt the same way that we did. But sure enough, it worked out that way.
Well, look, he's going to be a great president, President-elect Trump right now, getting his team together. And I was on some network the other day. I was interviewed on ABC TV in New York City the day after. And the guy asked me, he says, this was local New York TV, he says, well, what is Trump going to do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what is he going to do? He's going to do exactly what he said he was going to do. He has a contract with the American people. He laid everything out. He's going to do everything on there. He's going to start with number 1. He's going to go down to number 8. And he's going to attempt to get it all done. And it's real easy because, he's not going to be worrying about the political wins, or he's not going to be looking at polling numbers or focus group numbers. He's going to do exactly what he said he was going to do. And he's got a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and he's going to pass the majority of it, and we're going to make America great again. So that's all good. Now, Congressman, you had a big win Tuesday night. Let's talk about that a little bit. In your run for governor, you're the one candidate that's starting with a base that no one else has, right?
Well, yes, John. We were really humbled to have a strong victory on Tuesday. We were very, very humbled by the response we got from the voters. As you know, too, our district has changed, so we had Hanover and New Kent in the new district, and did extraordinarily well there. More than I could dream of as far as the percentage of the vote. Got 70% in New Kent County and 68% in Hanover, which was just phenomenal. So, we feel good about where we are. Obviously, we will miss, but still be connected with York County, City of Poquoson, and the eastern half of James City County. We still have the western half. So we'll still make sure we stay connected with those folks and work with Congressman-elect Scott Taylor there. But we were really, humbled by the results. And, what this is a directive for us to make sure we're doing the things necessary there in Washington. I was there yesterday. I did a forum on what the future of this nation's defense would look like under a Trump presidency, and I was very enthusiastic about what Donald Trump has said, and that is to invest $500 billion back into our military throughout his first term, which I think is an extraordinarily ambitious goal, one that certainly will do everything we can to make sure that we attain and what we can do to rebuild the military. And then yesterday, as you know, President-elect Trump was up on the Hill with Speaker Ryan. I had a chance to go by and say hello to Speaker Ryan before he jumped in with President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Mike Pence. And Mike's a great friend of mine too. Served with him in the House. I think this nation is in great hands, and I believe that we heard the right things coming out from the president yesterday and saying, "Hey, listen, President-elect Trump is going to be our next president. We owe it to him as a nation to make sure we do everything to ensure his success," and I believe that that's what's going to happen. So I'm extraordinarily excited about the results of the election, not only in our race, but also with both Vice President-elect Pence and President-elect Trump. And we look forward to, as you said, a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican President, and really getting the things done that have to be done in this nation. I really believe that we can turn things around, get this economy going, get our nation's military rebuilt, and really, just improve the quality of life for Americans. That's what we all want, regardless of political stripes, to make sure we accomplish that.
Look, that's going to be the bottom line, and I think it's going to be a great presidency, a wild ride. And Trump's a tireless worker, and he's not going to be looking at poll numbers, and he's not going to be thinking about what he has to do to get reelected in 2020. He's going to go about his business just like he's always done. He's going to pursue it with reckless abandon, and I think he's going to surround himself with people that are going to drive his agenda home, that are going to be very loyal to the movement. So I'm really looking forward to it. So, Dr. Wittman, let's talk about this gubernatorial race. Okay. And let's be frank like we always are. Some people have said, well, Rob Wittman, he doesn't really have an infrastructure. He doesn't have the fire in his belly for this. He really wanted to run for Senate, but now that's out because little Timmy Kane's going back to the Senate, so he can't do that. So he's probably going to drop out of this race. He's not really raised any money, blah, blah, blah. That's what I've heard. Respond to that.
Well, John, I have traveled around the state, talked to thousands of people, about where we are as a Commonwealth. And obviously, being a member of Congress, my focus had to be on being that member of Congress. And there were limitations that I had in raising money since I'm a member of Congress and I do fall under the federal fundraising requirements. So now where we are is to take a look at this point in time to understand, too, all the things that are around us. There's so many things that have been happening this week that we have to look at, not just with the governor's race, but also what's happening there on Capitol Hill. So, we're taking all of that in. One of the exciting things that I think is in the offing that has a very high possibility of happening, and that is we could have a Virginian as the Secretary of the Navy. Congressman Randy Forbes, I think, is on the very short list to become the next Secretary of the Navy. So that, to me, is very exciting. I have an opportunity potentially to be, and we're working on this, to be the Sea Power and Projection Forces Subcommittee Chairman in Washington. So there are a lot of moving parts on what's happening. I've had great conversations with folks. So, we are taking all of this in. I certainly do have the fire in the belly for service, and that's what needs to come first, John. I need to look at everything across the spectrum and determine where is the best place for me to serve. This is not about Rob Wittman. It's about something bigger than that. It's about our Commonwealth. It's about putting Virginia first. It's about our nation. It's about me looking at all of those different aspects of this and determining, where can I best serve? And I've worked very, very hard with everything that I have in pursuing the governor's race. Nothing at this point has changed. We're continuing down that road. But there's also a lot of things going on in Washington that we have to be part of if we're really going to get this nation back on track. So, as you can imagine, tremendous demands on time, but we are committed to make sure we're doing what's best for our nation and doing what's best for our Commonwealth.
So, Dr. Wittman, are you staying in the race for governor?
John, at this point, my plans have not changed. At this point, my plans have not changed.
Okay, so you're staying in the race, but what I'm hearing, Dr. Wittman, and, we've been friends a long time, and you got
Yes.
a lot of people that are behind your candidacy and a lot of people that believe in you and what you've done. But what I hear you saying is that right now you're still in the race for governor, but you might look to see what happens in the House of Representatives, that you might be better serving your nation there rather than putting your time in to a run for governor. Is that what I've heard?
Well, what I'm looking at, John, I owe it to the folks that I represent, especially after this election and all the things that have gone on. I owe it to them to look at everything and how I can best serve. And the conditions have changed from where we were on November the 7th. And I owe it to those folks, to Virginia, to make sure I'm looking at, what's in the best interest of Virginia. This is not about Rob Wittman. It's about what's best for our nation, what's best for Virginia. So I think that just comes naturally. It's something that I have to do. So it's not anything that I think is unusual. It's something that anybody in my position would have to do. So that's what we're doing. We're talking to a lot of folks across the spectrum, looking at everything to determine, where's the best place for me to serve. And I've done a lot in working and talking to folks about this run for governor, and we will continue to do that, as well as speaking with folks both in the transition team with President-elect Trump, and also too with House leadership. So I'm trying to take all of those pieces in. So I haven't made any decision other than we're continuing the path that we're currently on, but continuing to listen to and understand the situation that unfolds around us. It's a very, very exciting time. It's something that requires my undivided attention. And again, the question I have to ask is, where can I best serve? And this is bigger than me. This is about, not just our nation, but about, what's in the best interest of our Commonwealth going forward. So, John, that's where I am right now, is looking at all that information and continuing down that road. But my plans at this point have not changed.
Okay, so assuming, let's just play what ifs, and of course we're on the radio, so bear with me, Congressman, we have to do this. Or I have to do it because it's fun. So, and we love you, as you know. So you stay in the House. You mentioned that you could become, your term as chairman of the House Readiness Subcommittee expires. So assuming you stayed in the House, now you've got more seniority, all that good stuff happens. You've got a great resume. You got a great experience. If you stay in the House, what chair would you likely take over?
Well, we right now working with leadership and having conversations about assuming the Seat Power and Projection Forces Subcommittee role on House Armed Services, which, as you know, was the seat that Congressman Randy Forbes was in and is now vacant. So we've had conversations with Chairman Mac Thornberry, with the leadership in the House, about assuming that role, which is something that obviously both for our nation and the Commonwealth is very important. So that's what we're looking at, as well as our other leadership roles there in the Congress. I've had great conversations with folks there about what the future holds in other leadership realms. I had some great conversations with Speaker Ryan and the things that he's doing with the transition team and with President-elect Trump. And those things, John, are very, very exciting. I think hold great potential for Republicans now to get some very significant things done, things that we waited years to do. So all those things are discussions that I'm having, doing a lot of listening to, talking to folks, around the Commonwealth as I have conversations. So that's all part of, I think, the natural process of what you go through and looking at, again, the best place to serve. So I've had those conversations. I've been very, very humbled in talking to folks, both in their support in my run for governor, but also saying, Rob, we just want to make sure that we have you in a position where you can best serve, and I owe it to them to make sure I'm looking at all these things. Because, again, it comes down to, I think, being that servant leader, putting others before myself and making sure that I'm making the best decision, not for me, but for the Commonwealth of Virginia and for our nation.
Okay, so couple questions, Dr. Wittman. Number one, do you think Paul Ryan is going to survive, and do you think he'll remain a speaker within your caucus?
I do. I think there's a lot of excitement on Paul's behalf and what he can do with the Trump administration. Many things that we have put out for years. He did a great job of putting out a very, very strong agenda. Remember this, too, John. He went out symbolically and voted early, went there and cast his ballot for Donald Trump. And then he and Scott Walker and Ron Johnson barnstormed the state of Wisconsin, and they helped to carry the state of Wisconsin for Donald Trump.
That's true.
And while some of his earlier words, may have been not as strong as we would have liked in supporting Donald Trump, I have to judge him on his actions and what led up to him taking Wisconsin, which was one of those critical blue wall states where folks said, hey, this is this Democrat blue wall. We don't have to worry. These states are firmly in the Democrat column. And that was an early state that came in on election night. And what Paul did there, I have to give him credit for doing that, and the leadership that he showed in really coming home and doing, I think, a yeoman's job in getting out there and not only making sure that we got Donald Trump across the finish line, but getting Ron Johnson across the finish line in a very, very tough race where Ron Johnson's seat now is one of those that will help us preserve a majority in the Senate. So I've got to give Paul Ryan credit for that and his enthusiasm now and what he's doing in engaging Donald Trump and being, an integral part of the effort in this transition to make sure that what happens in the House coincides with what President-elect Trump's vision is for the nation. So I think all those things add up to, a good place for the House Republican caucus to be, a good place for Paul Ryan's leadership to be. And I have to give him credit for that. And I do believe that Donald Trump is on board, as you've heard Donald Trump say, with Speaker Ryan and his efforts there in the House. So I think that Paul Ryan will get will get reelected as the speaker. I have no idea by what margin. When we go back next week, we will gather. There'll be for the candidates for these leadership positions, there'll be a forum for them to answer questions of members. So, it'll be interesting to see the members' questions there. But I have to give Paul Ryan credit for the things that he's done. And as I said, early on, I was concerned about where he was right after the tape came out of the conversations between Mr. Trump and Billy Bush. But I have to give him credit in how things ended up. And, boy, he did a yeoman's job in getting out there and doing all he could to make sure he carried Mr. Trump across the finish line in his home state.
Well, listen, Dr. Wittman, whatever you decide to do, I'm going to be right there with you. And if you stay in the House, obviously, now that we have a president-elect Trump, he's going to need allies there. You've been with us for a very long time, and you've been very loyal to the Trump campaign. We appreciate that. And, look, I just know that you'll make the right decision for yourself, the country, and the family, and whatever it is, I'm going to be 100% behind it.
Well, John, I appreciate that. Like I said, I've been very humbled. I've had, literally over the last several days, hundreds of people calling and texting with well wishes and with their thoughts and ideas about what I should be doing in the future. So I'm trying to take the time to consider all those things, as well as conversations with the folks in the Trump transition team and the leadership in the House about where we are, as well as constituents and folks across Virginia. So it's a very humbling time, but it's one that deserves my undivided attention in making sure that I make the right decision.
Well, Dr. Wittman, thank you very much. I'm sure you will. And remember, the John Fredericks Show never leaves a soldier on the field.
That's right.
We'll see you next week. Keep it right here on your source for the truth. Everybody else, they lie to you, not me. I tell you the truth. That's why I'm number one in Virginia. Thank you. I'll be right back.